Hi, thank you guys all for coming. Here we are about to start another OTT. Today's topic is user testing, specifically remote and moderated, the ones that we do most here at Whitefront. So, what is OTT? Oh, sorry, what is user testing? User testing is a method of seeing and gathering information on how the user behaves about whatever you're trying to test. Usually, in our case, we do it with screens, with UI, with the apps or other the web pages we are building, right? It's meant for gathering their feedback and interacting with the users so we can build better designs, of course, and better products, right? It is important because this way we get their feedback and understand how they feel and how they behave across the interface, right? It helps to identify what can be the issues about it that it might have, or if maybe some assumptions we do while we are designing, they are true or false, right? And this way we can evaluate the product and how the results are, where it's going, right? If it's the path we are going, it's correct or not. And then we can make some adjustments on how we are designing and how we are making stuff so the product fits better to the user, and this way it delivers more value for the user, and this way it's more successful, right? There are many types of user testing, and here I'm going to present the types of it. This image is from Nielsen Norman Group, right? And so there are plenty of user research methods, right? So there is eye tracking, clickstream, A/B testing. We can be hours and hours. Each of them could be one OTT, and it will still be not enough to talk about it. So all of this, how we can measure this user testing and measure how we test how the product is. And here they are basically distributed in a way that we can understand how the user behave or how they say they behave. That's attitudinal. And how we select it depends on what we are studying it and how we want to study it, because depending on the context and how the product is and etc., we can choose either one or the other. It really depends on which stage of the design we are, how much time we have, the budget, and things like that, right? So I already said there is how the user behaves and how the user behaves. And if the testing is more direct, like interviews, or more indirect or quantitative as surveys, for example. Here we are talking about remote moderated testing. That's the one we are going to talk about. Because this remote moderated testing has some positive sides. That, for example, if you want to guide the user in a way that if depending on what you're testing, you can't just let the user do it himself, because he might not give you exactly what you want to understand or answer the questions in the way you want to hear it. Not by guiding it. No, you're not guiding the answer, but sometimes they answer it in a way that's too broad, and you just can't get any insights from that. So for me, remote moderated testing, it's the best one for when you are not in the same room as the person is. That's mostly our case. And also at the same time, you want to understand better the background and how they behave, and if they're going in a way that they are getting lost, they have your support to do the test. Well, how we do remote moderated test, right? First, we plan and prepare it, right? That is defining the objectives of the test, right? And select the testing method that I already explained. It depends on the context, the design phase you are, and the budget, and how many users you can test, right? Usually, I never saw a test with less than 5 users, but 1 is better than nothing, of course. But 5 is ideal for getting all the feedback you need, at least for a basic test, and then iterate and do it again, right? So you select the testing method, define the objective, then you test, you create a test scenario, you prepare the materials, the environment for the testing. Because on remote moderated tests, you really need to have a good background and a supporting environment so you can make it be. So, like for example, in this case, that's a real case from ours, we can build the prototype in a way that the user can give you all the answers you need, right? Define the moderator and observer roles is something really important, because if you test by just one person, you only have the moderator, the one that's interviewing the person and recording the call and doing all the questions and interpreting everything the user is saying. He might miss some details because he needs to make everything work, you know? So the observer role is the guy or the girl that's outside this environment. He's just observing and watching and trying to understand everything that's happening, and he has a different view than the moderator does. So the more observers you can get, the better, because each of them will have a slightly different perception, and your result is going to be more accurate, you know? For example, 3 observers here. This is a template that we have for user testing, and we need to fill up all this information. If there is only the one that's conducting the testing, of the observer 1 and the conductor will be the same person, right? And recruiting the participants is also an important step, because you need to select kind of in a persona. You need to understand, oh, I need a person from this age, this gender, I don't know, this profession, and you need to recruit participants that fit the product you're testing, right? Because if you don't do it, for example, your product is meant for a middle-aged woman that, I don't know, goes to the doctor every 15 days. And you test it with a young man that's, I don't know, a programmer. And so they are very different, and this will bias your result, and we don't want that. So it's important to recruit the correct group of participants. So this is a template for how we invite. There's someone talking. Yeah, sorry for that. So this is the template how we do the invite. When conducting tests, we need to get user consentment. Otherwise, we can't record. In this case, always imagine that we are in a Zoom call. We are right now. And the conductor needs to ask for user consentment, explain. This is the warm-up. Explain what's going to happen, understand if the user has any questions before starting, and also give him a background of the product, because this way they can understand better what's happening, and they might give you better answers and more accurate answers. Task briefing is basically saying what the user is going to do. Usually we segment the task by task. If you're going to task the whole app, you segment like, oh, please do the onboarding, please do this, please do this, please do that, and understand and analyze how it all happens. That's the observe and take note step. So again, this is the part where if you have just the conductor, it gets a little tricky, because you need to explain, answer their questions, and understand how they are behaving and so on. And at the same time, take notes, right? And follow-up questions are basically the questions that follow the test, but it's more the attitudinal thing we said in the beginning, and it's the part where they say how they felt about the the test, because how they behave you saw before, right? The next step is data analysis and report. So after you do all the testing with at least 5 users, you gather all the data, you gather all the recordings, and if you need to, if you're only the one that's moderating, you need to listen again to all the calls, maybe transcribe the important part. Along with that, you can identify the insights and understand where are the gaps and what's the problems with your product, or if there are good stuff, of course. You need to categorize the issues and analyze everything that happened in order to focus on what's more important to correct, because there might be big things that you need to correct, and there might be minor tweaks that you need to do, and this way you can analyze what's the most important things or not to do in your test. Of course, report findings. So for example, this is the part, or one example of a report that we have. One of the metrics is lostness rate. So when the person is doing the test, if they follow the happy path about the testing or not, or if they got completely lost. So in this case, usually we gave a rate from 0 to 1. Being 0, the person couldn't do the test, or they just got lost a lot and they barely can't complete it. And 1 being, oh, they follow the happy path, the magic path, and they did everything in the way it was planned to do, right? So this is the insight that we might have, and this is how we can make the testing a number, right? So we can measure it and have analytics about it. Also, this is another way to make metrics about the testing. So you can gather the time, how long it took for the user to complete each task, and later you can have an average, or later you can do some other metrics related to time, and so on. Depending on what you're testing, this is more what you need, and some other metrics might be more relevant than others, depending on what you're testing. It depends all about what you're testing, the product, and who is going to receive, right? Because sometimes the person that's going to make the decision, the stakeholder, wants another metric. This part is where it can vary. And this, after you deliver all these metrics and gather all the insights, you get together as a team and decide which will be the next steps. If you want to correct the test, not the test, sorry, if you want to correct the interface and test it again, or if you're going to make all the adjustments and try to make a small release, whatever, it depends on the product as well. Challenges about user testing, right? If you recruit a participant that might not be in your focus group, or might not be, as I said before, if your product is targets for a middle-aged woman and you test it with a young man, it won't be accurate, your test, right? So it might not be as relevant as it could be. Also, sometimes the participants are not available in the time frame you have to do the testing. That's another challenge. If there is only the moderator on the testing, there is no observer, it might get a little biased. Of course, the more experienced the moderator is, the less he's going to bias the project, the testing. But when you're just one person, it might happen, so the more people there are to observe the test, the better. Sometimes cost can be a constraint, right? Because you have to do it in little time, or you can't reward the participant to do it, so it might get harder in this way. Technology, the internet gets down, or you have a light shortage, or any things like that, it might be a problem as well. Or maybe if you're testing with a very elderly group and they are not used to record themselves, not used to share their screens or things like that, might be a hard thing as well. Sometimes when the participants are too comfortable in a way that they already know the researcher, they already know the owner of the company, or they don't want to tell you something bad to not hurt your feelings, right? It can happen as well. This can bias your test. Overcoming internal resistance, because sometimes when we think we already know about everything there is to know about the user, people sometimes look down to user testing, but that's our job to show the importance of it. And time constraints, I think I already said that. Sometimes you have, I don't know, 3 days, 2 days to do a user testing, and the participants are not available in that time, so on. Common tools. Well, these common tools that I'm going to present right now, they are not only for remote testing, that might be used for all those other kinds of testing that I said before. All for user testing, but not all for moderated remote. So the one that I really love to use is this one, Maze. It's just awesome. I love this. But all of them are really good. Especially look back for moderated remote user testing. It has several tools that help the designer to analyze it. It's great. And well, I try to make this the lean as possible. So any questions?
I just
That's
have
it for
one
today.
question, Bruna. What do
Yes.
you think is the ideal number of participants for a test?
The minimum is 5. That, as I said, it depends on your context. If you could test with just one person, is better than none. But there is a curve, that a graphic that we have when we study user testing, that at least 5 is the amount of users that can give you the most of the answers with the lowest of people. I hope I explained it right. So there is a logarithm curve that we understand that it has an ideal point for each group of testing. So ideally, you test with 5 people, at least 5. Of course, if you have more, the more the great, right? But at least with 5, you iterate over that, you learn whatever you need to learn, and then test it again if it is the case, right? With 5 people, 5 different people, right?
Yes. Okay, great. I don't have any other question.
Anybody else? No? So, thank you guys. As always, a pleasure to present for you all. Hope to see you in our next OTT.